Hey gang, how's it going? Todd Nauck here. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there to get online and join y'all here. Thank you so much for joining me for today's art live stream. So I hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's staying safe. Got this Green Goblin on an Amazing Spider-Man sketch cover that I had done the line work for in the last live stream. If you haven't seen it, it's still here on my channel. Feel free to, sorry about that, did not mean for that to kick in. Feel free to be sure to watch this one of the line art as well. But today we are doing the Copic marker colors for this illustration. So I'm so glad you could join me today. Let's flip the camera around. Let's get to coloring. I'll do my best to respond to questions while I color. I'll be sure to try to give out all the color codes of each Copic marker I'm using and kind of share with you some of my tips and tricks and techniques. But I'll try to answer questions as I go. But as always, most of the focus goes into the art, so that's where my brain will be. But if I can answer a question or two, I'll do my best. Thanks so much. And yeah, let's get to coloring. Got to flip the camera around. All right, let me readjust the rig and lighting here. One sec. There we go. All right. We gotta get this box out of the way. All right. How are we looking there? So I got my wallet of Copic markers here, 72 count. I got some extra greens and purples I might utilize in this here. And where's my wallet of gray markers, which I have my gray markers here, which we'll use for shading. So let's get cracking. All right, so let's start with the greens. We're going to start with his quote, some air quotes there, skin color. So sometimes when I'm working on a piece, I will do some test colors, some test swatches to see am I using the right shade. So like that's a G02 there as an option. Well, I'll find the right base color for Goblin. That's the G14. Let's see. In the G0 family, I have the G07. YG0 or YG25. It's pretty sloppy there, my handwriting. So this just kind of gives me a YG06. Just kind of gives me some options on what to pick, what to choose. I think I want to start with the G14 for my base. I like that shade. We'll come in with some darker and lighter shades as we go, but the G14 is what we're going to start with. It's a really good bright green sort of base. Now I'm going to leave some, as always, considering my light source. We're going to say the light's coming from above. And I'm just going to put my base color in, leaving some white of the board to come in for some lighter shades of green a little bit later on. Anything that overlaps, like this part of the ear, overlaps the inner side of the ear, that's where there would potentially be a shadow. So we're going to have more color. We'll come in with more shading there. So if the light's coming from above, everything furthest away from the light will be where the most of the color and the shadow will be. Like here underneath the nose. We're gonna have a lot of light hitting that bridge of his nose right there. As we pull down the face through the lips, through the jawline. So the bottom of the chin, the bottom of the lip but the light is hitting there. So you want to know the shapes and planes of your character's face and the body here. The shoulder muscle, I'm going to sculpt that with color, just as I did with line and shadow. So since this arm is tucked here inside, so close to his body, we're going to have a lot of color. We'll come in with a lot of shadow there. Same for this shoulder here now. We're going to sculpt it. We're going to think of each muscle grouping. So study your anatomy. Study it. Always look at it. Learn these muscle shapes. Don't have to know the names of the muscles. Just know the shapes. And then you can consider how the light would hit that. And so where you'd have the shadow and the light. So just kind of like if you've ever been in a beginner art class, whether it be in junior high or high school, and you had to shade a ball, like they had a ball sitting on a stand there and on a little pedestal, and they had a lighting on it, and you had to render the ball. That's essentially the basics there. So young artists learn that sort of kind of basic shading, and then that translates to here, because these are all like separate little shapes here, and I'm rendering them just as I would a ball. So we got the thigh muscles here. I'm considering each muscle group as a shape. And so I know where to put the highlight. This leg goes back a little bit more, so there's going to be a little less light hitting it because the body is kind of overlapping it. So we're going to have a little less white for highlights. But here, this leg is coming forward. It's past his body. So there's going to be an opportunity for more light here on top of the thigh, but as we move towards the inner thigh. So these are the things that you just have to kind of think of. Under the eyes, we really want that kind of creepy, sort of shadowed look around there. So I'm going to have some more color going right underneath the eye there, but leaving a little bit of a highlight on the cheek where the facial muscles, the facial muscles have pulled to create, you know, the bunching of the cheek muscles and things like that. So that was the G14. Now from there, I want to add another shade of green. We're going to just kind of layer in some different shades of green here to really kind of sculpt him out. So it's with these different shades, it kind of gives a nice texture. You know, it kind of makes him look maybe a little more monstrous. Not so much we're not going for like a vintage 1970s Green Goblin sort of color look. We really want to kind of really take advantage of the palette that we have here with all these markers. So utilizing these different shades of green will give us just kind of these different shapes, these different cuts and swatches of green here. I don't know if you can see that here, kind of push in a little closer, but you can see how these greens are melding with each other, how they're mixing and melding, and it's creating new sort of shapes and blendings for the viewer's eyes. So it's not just one flat shade of green, it's multiple shades of green creating the texture of the goblin. So I can go over the green I laid down, pull into the white to create this gradation. It's not just coloring in the white parts with this new shade of green, it's also coloring over the previous green and letting these inks mix and merge and meld to create new colors. That's the intention here. If you're hearing a squeak, that's the brush tip of the marker there. That's the classic Copic squeak. Actually, I probably need to refill this G02 after this broadcast. It's getting a little dry. You can always add second layers of color. So, I already used this some in the face. I'll come in and put in just a little more. So just to pump up the vibrancy, the saturation of the color in the illustration. Now I want to come in with one of these really light kind of these yellow greenish shades here. I want to utilize one of these. I think I like that YG06. So where is that? I'm going to use that to even come into further into the highlight area. To give, put a little bit more of a yellow green in all of this. Still leaving a little bit of that white left, still a little bit. It's not coloring every square inch, but just kind of bringing it in here just to texture him out. Let these colors really merge together. That's my goal here with these markers, to let the colors merge. It's almost like a controlled watercolor. Like with watercolor, you kind of have to let it go the way it wants to go. It's an exercise in letting go of control. But with markers here, we have a little bit more control because the ink doesn't flow as quickly as the watercolor paint, so you can kind of make your choices as you see fit and have a little bit more control. Now, I like the lack of control. I like the kind of the chaos that watercolor can bring. I need to do more watercolor videos at some point. I almost decided to do this one as a watercolor, but I thought, you know what? Actually, I think this would really benefit from Copic markers. So I chose this one instead. So now I'm going to come in with a little bit of the YG25 for a little bit more vibrancy of the yellow-green. Just kind of it's almost kind of like a dirtier yellow-green. So I want to bring in this YG25. To kind of put a little more grit in the goblin here. See if we can answer any questions here. Been struggling with the female figure. Any recommendations or preferred reference to help out? I say, I actually struggled with learning how to draw the female figure when I was younger. It was easy for me to draw male figures because, they're just big, bulky guys. Now, it's not to say you can't draw big, bulky women. I mean, She-Hulk has been big and bulky here of late. But when she went all gray and everything. But guys, it's just kind of easier for me to draw male figures. But trying to capture the female form was very difficult for me. I found life drawing classes helped me, and my fashion illustration classes at the Art Institute helped me a lot. Helped me kind of get past some of those hurdles. Helped me kind of find how to capture the things that were a struggle for me, which was kind of capturing the strength with the femininity, just depending on the type of female I was drawing. Be sure to check out my Wonder Woman video here on my channel. I did a 2 or 3-parter with drawing a full figure Wonder Woman. Not that she was full figured in the traditional sense of the term, but it was I drew the complete figure, I should say. It was probably a better term for that. The complete figure, and I kind of addressed some of these things. So I would say, try to draw from life whenever possible. Draw from real life. Study real life. That always helps me. And then just kind of keep practicing it. Learn those shapes. Drawing women is like drawing men. You got to learn the shapes, and it kind of takes a lot of practice. Study how the figure moves, and then translate that in your choice of lines and shapes appropriately. It just takes a lot of work and practice. It's going to feel clunky at first. Have grace on yourself. Keep at it, and yeah, it's just kind of that repetition. You just kind of have to keep trying. Is the best way to express that. So I wish you all the best. Hopefully that helps you. I'm going to come in with a little YG03 here, a lighter shade of yellow-green, just to kind of eat up a little bit more of this white. Don't want him too much white on here. I don't want him to look too glistening. So I'm just gonna see when we have that yellowish green here with a regular green really kind of creates this kind of far creepier sort of goblin than just straight traditional green. Really like the yellow green. It almost kind of brings in a, for lack of a better term, more of a sickly look. You know, it's like really gives him some nice vibrancy. Have you met Aaron Blaise? I have not. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that name. I don't know Aaron Blaise or what Aaron Blaise does. I'll have to check. I'll have to look Aaron Blaise up. So let's color his eyes. We're going to go with a yellow here. So I'm going to start with a Y13. So I'm starting right up underneath the ridge of his eye because the light would hit there. So I do want to have a little bit of a highlight. So I'm leaving just a little bit of a highlight over here. Do the same for the other side. So I really want a lot of yellow up in this eyeball. Going to come in with a little Y19. Just for a little bit of sculpting here. You're currently reading the second issue of Gwen Stacy. Yes, thank you. For those of you that don't know, my current Marvel comic I'm working on is called Gwen Stacy. It's the story of Gwen Stacy in high school because Gwen Stacy was not introduced into the Amazing Spider-Man comics until Peter Parker was in college at Empire State University. And Gwen was a friend of Harry Osborn because she and Harry went to high school together using the Y00 now just to kind of blend these yellows together. It's a very light shade of yellow. So Gwen and Harry went to high school together because they went to Standard High, but Peter went to Midtown High. So they all met up at college. And so we're telling the story about, this is almost like a prequel. Who was Gwen Stacy in high school? So it's kind of like a Gwen Stacy series. It's kind of like Veronica Mars or Nancy Drew set during the early Marvel Universe. And Green Goblin does have a role in this story. So make sure you pick up issues 1 and 2 on sale right now. In fact, the reprint, the second printing of issue 1 comes out this next Wednesday. So if you missed the first printing or you can't find the first printing, there is a reprint coming, so you can get on board with this new series, and it's a lot of fun. Please do join me for that. So let's. So we got the greens and we got the yellows going here. We'll take care of the teeth when it comes time for using the grays. So I think what we want to do now is focus on the purples. Focusing on the purples. So I'm going to test out some purples here. So we got the Y04. Let's see, that might not be the best choice for a base color, but good for a highlight color. I'm sorry, V, these are Vs, not Ys, V06. I have the V115. Kind of a blue violet, but BV11. So I think I'm going to go with the V15 as my base, and I'll probably use these for some different shades in this. And I also have my V01, which might come in for some blending of some highlights. So I've got my little test strip here. Oh, what's this, V12? Something to consider, the V12 there. I also have the V93. So, yeah, right now I think we're going to start with the V15. V15 is going to be the base. So, similar approach as I did with the goblin skin is to starting with my base color here, and we're going to create those highlights by leaving, or where that light is going to be hitting the goblin, it's going to be hitting from above, so I'm going to do all those same thoughts as before. Where do I want to put the color? Where am I going to have shadow? Where am I going to have highlight? What overlaps? So since his head overlaps his neck and over his torso a bit, That's where there would be a shadow. Now mind you, I'm going to come in with some gray markers and do some more realistic shadows a little bit later on. So, but I do like to use some color for shadow as well, and just kind of creating the shapes. I look forward to coloring this pumpkin bomb a little bit later on. Let's see, someone asked how much, I think they were asking how much input do I have on the story for Gwen Stacy? It's been really fun working with Christos Gage and Nick Lowe. Christos Gage is the writer, and Nick Lowe and Lindsay Kohick are our editors, and as well as managing our consulting editor, the legendary Marvel editor, writer, Ralph Macchio. So I'm working with them, and Christos and Nick really figured out a lot of the key points of this story, but I have been able to introduce some of my ideas for the story. Like in issue 4, we have the X-Men appearing. So that kind of came about from a conversation. We had this big conference call, and we had a conversation on, we're going to see the Marvel Universe kind of happening, early Marvel Universe happening around Gwen in this series. We're going to, and if you've read the first issue, you kind of see we do a little nod to the Fantastic Four. We kind of mention Matt Murdock, his law practice. So we have these kind of things kind of peppered in throughout the series. And Christos had said, we have the football game coming up because Gwen's boyfriend, Darius, is a football player. And, I'm sorry. I need to pause my story. So, sorry about that, gang. I had to take care of some family business. Sorry, that's life working in the home studio there. Sometimes you got to answer some questions as far as what's going on around the house. So back to where I was. So we have a football game coming up in issue 4, and I suggested, now I'm not giving any spoilers here, no spoilers, but I suggested, since Hank McCoy used to play football before he joined the X-Men, could we have them show up at the game? And so they said, yeah, let's do that. That's a fun idea. So, and then Christos took that and ran with it. So make sure you don't miss issue 4. You've probably seen the solicitations. You've probably seen the cover for issue 4. So, so do keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully this was all on screen there. I'm sorry I got so focused on talking about Gwen Stacy there. I wasn't sure if I was moving this around. So you can see here I put in all the purple here through his tunic here. So yeah, working with Christos, with Nick, with Lindsay, with Ralph, it's very collaborative. They're very open to my story ideas or suggestions, and I do get a lot of leeway in how I translate that story visually. I get to have a lot of input in how I kind of lay out the page. I take what Christos has written, and if I think, oh, would y'all mind if I broke this one panel up into 3 panels? Or could I make these 2 panels 1 panel? Or could I add an extra panel here to the scene to create another story beat? They're very open to that. So that's kind of the fun of being the artist of a collaborative team, of the writer, editor, etc. So I'm going to come in with some V04 now, some lighter shade of purple. I'm going to bring this into the white part of the tunic. Sorry if I've been a little off camera here. I should pull the shot back just a little bit so I don't leave things off of the camera there. So, so thank you for your question about how much input do I have in the story. The artist does have a part in the story, especially when it comes to tackling the visuals and how to tell that story visually. That is my responsibility, taking what the writer has written and translating that, but also kind of having a hand in making suggestions on what we can do for the story. So so it's fun to do a conference call, to have a sit down, like if we're all at a convention together or something like that, to have kind of get together for a meeting and kind of talk out the project and what are some of the things we want to do, what are some of the things we'd want to see for the project that we're working on. It's really fun because we're all looking to make fun, cool comics together. We're all working together to really make the comics that we think will that y'all will want to read and bring in the fun that we have with our own sensibilities and styles and just wanting to create fun, cool comics. So and this Gwen Stacy has sold well. The first issue sold out, or at least went to reprint. It was the number. I shouldn't say it sold out necessarily. There might still be copies at your local store, so make sure you give them a call and say, hey, do you have copies of Gwen Stacy issue 1 of the new series that's out? But the first issue was the number 4 selling comic for February. We were behind Wolverine number 1 and X-Men issues 6 and 7. Gwen Stacy came in at number 4. So I want to say thank you to everyone who picked up and read our first issue of Gwen Stacy. Issue 2 came out just this past Wednesday, March 11th. So I want to say thank you so much for supporting this book. It's a lot of fun. It's not a retcon. It's not a what if. It's a prequel is probably the best way to refer to this comic. This is the story of who is Gwen. This is Gwen's story. It is Gwen doesn't even know Spider-Man. She doesn't even know Peter Parker yet. This is all about Gwen Stacy and who she was as a teenager. So it's been a lot of fun. All right, so that was the V04. Now we're going to come in with the V01, and we're just going to kind of blend in this highlight area here. It's a very light shade, this light shade, and I color over all the purples here with this V01, and it kind of blends it all together. I do not use the colorless blender for blending. I do not think that is the right tool. It never really works for me in that way. But using the lightest shade of whatever color you're working on, like here I'm working on purples, this V01 is my lightest shade I currently own. So just using this to go over all these colors, it just activates the ink and blends it all together the way I want. It's a far better tool for blending your colors than using a colorless blender. I would say do not use your colorless blender for blending colors. It's not going to give you the type of vibrancy as you would get if you were utilizing the lightest shade. This is just my little tip, my trick. Because the colorless blender is just going to kind of, it's like, it's no ink. There's no ink in it. There's no color in it because it's colorless. So it's just really kind of just like the alcohol, just kind of just lightening everything up and creating these weird pools and textures, which is fine if you need a weird pool or texture of color, but not for me. Not for when I want to do this kind of blending. So use the lightest shade, and I think your results will be far better because, as you can see, this is how it's worked here with the Goblin. Now I want to bring in a little bit of this BV11. It's a different shade of purple, but I really want to kind of create a little more gritty sense of color here. As you can see already, it's kind of bringing in a little bit, pardon me, a little bit more of a muted sort of look here to the purples. Not quite so vibrant. I really want a kind of a supervillain feel here. I want the craziness of the Goblin to come through, kind of a little bit more of the darkness of the villainy kind of coming through. So I want that translated in the colors. Let's see. Let's check on, see if there's any questions here I can answer. Let's see. When I do Post-it notes, yes, hopefully y'all have seen my Post-it note videos. Do I consider the past ones for scale, or do you just draw each character how it comes out? I just draw each character as it comes out. Every Post-it note is 3 inches by 3 inches. That's the size I'm working with. But if I draw Colossus on one, he's a far larger character, or say the Hulk on one post-it, and then I'm going to draw like Kitty Pryde on another post-it, or someone who might be a smaller character. I'm not thinking, well, I've got to draw Kitty Pryde smaller so that she proportionately looks the same as, she would look the correct size next to the Colossus post-it. I don't really think in that way oftentimes, unless I'm doing a specific series where all the post-its are to be seen together. So I just pretty much draw each character to fill the space as I desire, as I see fit. That's my approach. All right, so that was the BV11. And thank you for the question and for asking about post-it notes. Hopefully I'll do more post-it note videos here in the not too distant future. All right, so now for his satchel and his belt. I think we're kind of coloring it brown in the comic, but oftentimes it's kind of a magenta. Do I even have that? I have to see if I have some extra magentas in my collection that I don't have in my wallet. I think a magenta would be just kind of really, really cool and fun here. All right, so I have a couple of shades of pink here, and here comes one rolling in. Live TV, people, working without a net. So let's see how some of these magentas look. Ooh, that's very bright. That's the RV14. Let's look at the, that's a bright pink too, RV23. Let's look at this RV66. That might be our winner right there as the base. RV, oh, that's the wrong shade here. That's too pink. RV32. Gotta make the right choice here. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna risk it. We're gonna risk it. We'll figure it out as we go. So we're gonna start with the RV66. We're gonna go classic magenta for his satchel and belt. So again, same situation as always. Thinking about where the light's coming from. Where are the folds? How will the folds create shapes as well? These are the things I want to think about. What overlaps? What's furthest away from the light? Those are kind of my first two thoughts. And then what are the folds and the shape? So like since the satchel overlaps his belt there, we want to put more color there. And as it wraps around his body, just kind of fade out there to the outer part. Leave a little white out over there. So that kind of gets us started there. That's stage kind of 1. I'm going to use that RV14 that we tested out earlier to kind of blend from this magenta out. So this is going to be a bit more pink. But I think it will still work when it starts to blend with the RV66. Because I'm going to color over that RV66 with this RV14 to kind of create that create that new color. I want these colors to blend together to make a hybrid color. So see how it's already kind of creating that new color? That's intentional. I'm going to come in with a lighter shade. Probably let's try the RV13. I'm going to try, yeah, let's try the RV13 here. Just, it's a little bit lighter than the RV14, still in the same RV1 family. Going from a 4 to a lighter shade of a 3. I'm just going to kind of start blending that all together. Because I want this satchel and belt to pop off the purples. I don't want them too close to the same shade of purple. of his tunic and gloves. That would be too much. And let's see, I noticed a spot of his tunic there that I missed. So let's just, that part is actually his tunic. So I just want to fill that in right there. And let's see, I'm going to bring in kind of a different shade of this kind of pink to kind of, I don't want it quite so vibrant here. So I'm going to kind of mute things out with a lighter shade of pink here. So that RV32 that I didn't think I liked, didn't like it on its own, but I can use it as a muting agent to make this a little less bright. Not totally killing the brightness, but just kind of tamping it back just a smidge is the goal. Just kind of mutes it out just a little bit, but still maintains that differentiation of magenta against the goblin's purple. That's the key part I'm trying to work around here. So that takes care of that. Let's go ahead and hit the buckles on his belt and shoulder strap. So we're going to use some Y21. Just going to kind of make it a golden buckle. And then we're going to come in with a little Y00. Just add a little bit more of a light yellow to it. Don't have to put a lot of detail into these. We're going to come in with some grays to really render this out as well. So on to the pumpkin bomb. It's one of our last items that we need to color before we move into the shading stage. So I'm going to come in with some G43, a different shade of green altogether, so it doesn't match his skin's tone so much, or is the skin. When I say skin, I say that loosely because it's a costume, but it's supposed to look like his skin. So there's a little some G43 and then a little G40 right there. Now let's come in with some oranges. Go start with a little YR16. I'm going to sculpt out each section of the pumpkin. You know how pumpkins have this kind of segmented circular gourd shape here? I'm considering each section its own shape, its own entity, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to consider the highlight for each bit separately. I'm going to come in with some R12. It's a lighter shade. So I keep the roundedness of the shape of the pumpkin here, because we're highlighting each little section of the pumpkin. This is my approach to it here. This is the way I like to do it. Some people might just do it as a whole full-on sphere, but I really like to focus on each chunk of the pumpkin, each segment that makes up that gourd shape. All right, so let's see. Actually, I want to keep that 1-2, that YR12, for the insides of the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern sort of cut. You know how you have the insides of the eyes and the mouth there? So you continue to utilize that. I'm going to come in with a little YR23 now, just for a little bit of a dirty orange here. Again, I don't want it too bright and skittle colored. So I'm almost kind of bringing in a shadow color to a degree, just to make it a little grittier. And then we got it smoldering here, because pumpkin bombs are ready to go. So I'm going to come in with some Y06, very bright shade of yellow, to Let's see, I need to fill in a little part of that pumpkin right there. There we go. Some Y06, and it's going to kind of start smoldering out of those eye sockets up into this kind of smoke trail. So that was the Y06. I'm going to come in with some Y08. Just really want to give this smoke some texture as we move away from the glowing eye sockets. Let's bring in that Y21, same color we used on the buckles there. It's kind of a muted shade of yellow. I kind of like that one. Put a little bit of that in his eyes too. And then we're going to blend this all together with that lighter shade of yellow, Y00. Just going over all those yellows, reactivating the ink, making it all smooth and blendy. Smooth and blendy. Noticed a little spot over here on his buckles there. All right. So that gets us the base colors here for the goblin. Let us now switch over to some shadows. Let's drop in some shadows here on Goblin. So I'm going to start with some Cool Gray 3. And I'm going to start sculpting things out here. Like, let's push back in. So I'm going to start here at the bridge of the nose. And I'm going to start kind of light, because I can always go darker. Maybe a little bit here on the forehead. I'm going to do a lot around the eyes, because I really want him to look sickly. I want him to look as creepy as possible. And so dropping heavy shadows around the eyes can really help bring that home. Put a lot of gray up in that ear. I'm going to come in with some darker shades of gray in a moment. In fact, let's go ahead and take care of his teeth. I'm going to pause here on the shadows. Going to come in with some warm gray 0, the W0. I'm going to shade out his teeth. I want him kind of white, but we also kind of want him to look a little creepy. So we're not going with a cool gray, but a warm gray. It's almost gives us a feel like he hadn't brushed his teeth. A little warm gray 1 as well. So mostly doing it here on the sides to create that round across his face feel. So we get that sense of that curvature. So here on the sides, leaving it white in the middle. Now we've created the illusion of roundedness. In fact, that Cool Gray 3 isn't giving me the depth of gray that I want. So we're just going to go ahead and bump up to a Cool Gray 4. I started with a Cool Gray 3 to see how dark it would be. It wasn't dark enough for my taste. So since I knew it wasn't dark enough, I can now confidently go to the Cool Gray 4 to get that darkness that I want. If Cool Gray 4 was too dark and I started with that, I'd kind of be pot committed. It would be a little difficult to come back from that. So I always like to start lighter to see, is it dark enough? If not, I can always go darker. So if you're never certain, always start lighter, because you're going to go over it anyway, and you can then move darker. So if you ever, when in doubt, start light, then go darker. And with this Cool Gray, you can see right here, I'm extending the scale texture that we did with the inks. I'm now doing that with color here to really bring that texture even further out. You see what I did there with the brush tip? We'll do this here on this other arm as well. So I'm going to go over the parts that I inked that were black. Those scales we know are done. Now, from here, I can continue those scales in a same kind of brick and mortar sort of fashion, staggered, like I was building a brick wall. And it creates this nice subtle gradation of scales. That is a nice subtle nod to your viewer. that makes them even look more scaly, but without having to go, but really letting the color do the heavy lifting there. Now, there's not a lot of space here, so we'll just fill this in here. If we can work in a few little scales there, it's a benefit. And we can really do that here with this forward thigh. Going to start with, oops, so sorry, gang. We're going to start with the dark areas here. They're a given. Now, continuing from the dark area, we're going to create some new rows of grayscale marker scales. Grayscale scales. Practice your scales. For those of you who took any sort of musical instrument, little musical joke there. You know what I'm talking about. So, even just a little bit there like that. So it creates a nice subtle sense of more scales, more texture, more detail, without having to be very, but it's in more of a subtle vein. It's more of a subtle cipher for your viewer. All right, now I'm gonna go from that cool gray 4 down to a cool gray 2 for like the belt buckle here, because this yellow is a lighter shade than green. Going to use this cool, so you see there we're kind of creating some nice shadows and shapes. I'm going to do that right up under his eye here. I already started there, didn't realize I hadn't slid the board up. I can do that here again. So underneath the brow ridge, because this eyebrow is covering his eye, so it's creating this shadow, so I followed right along, and then a little bit there at the bottom underneath, because it's kind of a rounded goggle. I would do this on Blue Beetle. I would do this for Impulse. So again, under the brow ridge, and then a little bit down here to create that rounded sort of shadow. Shading, doing those illustrations of a baseball in art school or an art class in high school now pays off, because I can shade a sphere. A little cool gray here in the teeth. All right, so let's see. Let's tackle the pumpkin bomb. What do you say? Let's come with some cool gray 3 here. Just putting it on this opposite side of everything. Opposite side of the light source is what I should say more specifically. Underneath the fingers, things like that. What about under the lip? Usually people shade the area. Yes, I should definitely throw some cool gray 4 under there. In fact, we'll do that next. Thanks for catching that. I'd missed that. So let's go ahead and tackle that now. So underneath Goblin's lip here, we can come in with a little cool gray 4. A little bit under the chin as well. Like through the sides. Maybe a little bit underneath the earlobe there. But yeah, definitely need some under the lip there. And I always like to put some under the bottom of the chin. Put some here on this arm here that's furthest from the light. Maybe do a little second layer, second coat in some of these areas. Okay. So let's see. So we got the pumpkin bomb going. You know what? I'm going to come in with a little cool gray 3. I'm not cool gray, warm gray 3. Warm gray 3. I'm going to add a little shadow texture to the smoke. Now it's further away from where the ignition is here, the sparking energy is here. We're moving further away from that, so it's not as bright yellow. So it goes from bright yellow, then it's fading out into kind of this After Effects smoke. So I'm just throwing a little bit of warm gray in there just to give it some texture. It looks like he's gonna, someone posted, it looks like he's gonna do one of his finger zaps. Am I gonna do anything with that? We just might. We just might try a really fun effect. I'm going to maybe pull off an experiment right here, live on camera. It might work, it might just ruin the whole piece. We will see. But before we get to that, I wanna add some shadow to his satchel and belt. So we're going to right now we're gonna try the Cool Gray 3, which I do feel is the right shade of cool gray. And we're going to add some shadow to the to these magentas here. So that was the Cool Gray 3. I want to come in a little darker, some darker areas. So I'm going to come in with a little Cool Gray 4, just to get that darker spot. Considering how the belt, kind of in a belt buckle, it kind of goes over that little bar. You can see I penciled right there, pencil and inked. So it's going to curve, so I'm going to keep that curve in mind. Oh, and I still have to do all the grays in his purple tunic as well. So we're going to come in with some Cool Gray 5, a little bit darker shade of gray, different shade of gray. And we're going to add some shadows all throughout the areas opposite of the light source. Put a lot right here under his chin. So it gives that sense of his chin is poking over his chest. A lot here through the midriff because he's hunched over a bit. So it's going to create more shadow. And here through this inner part of his body. A little bit here in the hands, not as much because we want the hands to pop off of the purple texture of his tunic. So we want to create that sort of depth there, otherwise his hand could get lost. So keeping the hand lighter, the body darker, so the hand really stands off. Maybe even put a little bit of this Cool Gray 5 in some of the darker parts of his scales. Just for a little more shadow and shape. Remember, as I say, the rule of thumb, you can always make things darker. So start light, work your way darker. If you feel, oh, I want it a little darker there, you can always go darker. You can't make it lighter. It's like getting a haircut. You can always take more hair off, you can't put the hair back on the head. It's always easier to go from lighter to darker. So like the fold there in his tunic. I'm also using the black and white line art that I've placed here as a guide as well. Anywhere where I have black lines, I know that that's a place where I want to continue the shadow. Put a little darker gray here underneath his ears, because that fold is where the light is just not going to hit as much. The deeper recesses of the ear canal there can really create some fun shadows. I'm going to add even more shadow around his eyes. I want him even more shadowed out and crazy creepy. But that's because I started lighter and I could see I need to go darker. So I will do just that. Okay, just add a little bit more gray here to certain parts of his gloves. Not a lot though, because I don't want it to get lost. Now, someone had mentioned the finger zap. You know how he can zap from his fingers? Let's pull this back just a little bit. I think we could really do something fun here. And this is a risky move here. This is first time trying this. I'm utilizing some of my Copic skills from the past, and I'm gonna take a risk here. Now we want a sense of energy, a sense of this lighting up. So, because we're gonna use a little white gel pen in here as well. So what I'm gonna do is, since it comes right from his fingertip, I'm gonna put some yellow right here. like it's lighting up. So that yellow, this is some Y06, that really bright shaded yellow you used over here, using it here too. So I just put a little bit there on his fingertip, and it's like his fingers charging up and blurring into that purple. And that's all I need to do there. That is done. That part is done. So that was a risky move there, but I felt it could be really cool and really help his hand kind of pop even off of his torso even more. So we still have another effect to come, but right now I want to do a little bit of maybe like some sort of background texture here behind him. So let's pull back a little further so you can see what I'm doing. Oops, sorry gang, sorry for jostling it there. Just want to make sure you can see the entire breadth of the image. So what I want to do here is we're going to just add a little bit of a smoke screen. So I'm using my mechanical pencil here, and I'm going to cut in a little, just draw a little guideline, very light. It might be very kind of difficult for y'all to see. But what I want to do is create a little smoke screen behind here. Nothing too detailed, but just enough to where we can give him an environment to live in. So I'm going to take some cool gray 4 here. I'm going to work from dark to light. I'm going to start to, and then I'm going to just start in darker. And what's fun about smoke page and create these gray 2 now, or at least that's the plan. I'll go over that cool 4 and sort of kind of start to blend it. That cool 2 is smudgering. I just made up a word. Smudging, blurring the cool 4 into the white there. So we're creating this kind of smudgy, blurry smoke texture. We want the inks to really merge and create shapes here. So we're just going to let that all kind of smush together. Now, whoop, got random purple and green markers sliding off the drafting table. Now we're going to go to the cool 0 and continue the process with an even lighter shade of gray. In fact, what I want to do is kind of erase my guidelines here a little bit. Don't really need them. Don't want them showing up in the illustration so much. Don't need to see that. Just really letting maybe use some circular motion here to really kind of get that billowy sort of feel. Maybe a few little dots here and there. Now, what I want to do is add a little texture to this because it's all gray, and that works. But I want to, I don't know, create a little more, bring some other colors into this. So I'm going to bring in a little warm gray. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to bump the rig. Bring in a little warm gray into all this. So I'm coming in with some warm 1 to give it a little bit more of, bring in some colors to bring colors, some variations. Sorry, I'm talking faster than my brain can keep up, which is not unheard of for me. Some variations of gray here to kind of just give the eye some subtle eye candy to play with. A little bit more of an organic environment. Wow, I'm so late, but man, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. You know, this will be up on my YouTube channel here for you to watch later on, so you can come back and start from the very beginning and see how we got here. So appreciate you tuning in now. Appreciate everyone tuning in now. Thanks so much, everyone, for hanging out. Just got a few more little details here. Like I said, we're gonna finish this off because right now it looks like he stuck his finger in some mustard, which I think the goblin would be crazy enough to do, but that's not what we were ultimately going for. So I'm not going to really fill up this spot. I'm just going to leave this white here just because we don't want it to get too busy and we really want the goblin to be the focus. Looking at it here, I see I want to make this backstrap a little darker shadowed. And underneath the flap there, so I'm coming in with some cool gray 5, just going through and seeing where can I make things maybe a little bit darker. Create a little more shape. That's kind of sometimes the edits that we make as we go and realize, ooh, we need a little bit more here, a little bit more there. Don't have to go crazy with it, but you know, just seeing how can I make things pop maybe just a little bit more. Maybe a little dark gray underneath those parts of the pumpkin bomb, a little darker gray in the stem there. Give it a little more life and shape. All right, so we got one more finishing touch here. I had said I was going to use the white gel pen. I have my Uniball Signo white gel pen. We're going to create a little bit of a little more sparkle here to his sparkle shot. So first, what I want to do is find my trusty triangle. My drafting tool, where did it go? There it is. Had it packed away, needed to unpack it here. So with my drafting tool here, let's see. So I'm keeping in mind, where would the, so we're gonna create kind of like the beginning of a spark, like his finger is glowing, getting ready to shoot. So we know this is where the laser is gonna come out. Right there, that's the tip of the finger. So I kind of want to create like a little bit of almost like a lens flare. So if I created one line like this, and the other line kind of cross it like that, I'm keeping in mind the geometric and design elements of it. What's going to cross? I want to be very thoughtful about that. So we go up, we come down. It's a thicker line towards the finger, and then it kind of thins out as we move away from it because the light is kind of just fading to give a sense of it being brighter at the very center of his fingertip. Then we're going to come over here on this side, keeping in mind where are those lines going to line up. We don't want to create any tangents. That's when a line merges with another line in an unappealing way. You don't want the lines to kind of line up and merge because it creates it's just design-wise not a good look. So look at that. It's already starting to come to life there. The experiment is paying off so far. Don't get cocky, kid. We're not done yet. I'm saying that to myself. Now we're going to create a little circle around here. Now I want to be careful to make sure that the gel pen ink is dry so that I don't smudge what I've gotten so far. But from what we can see right there, it looks like the finger is glowing. And that is the effect we were going for. So I'm going to put that right there. I'm not going to draw a full circle. It's more of a crescent. We want it to look a little more organic. So I did kind of a little broken line there. In fact, I'll bring it up to you so I don't move the camera. So you can see I broke up the line a little bit right there for a nice kind of organic feel. Now I want to put a few little extra sparkles. So I'm just going to drop in just a few dots. Right here to give a sense of the energy coalescing and getting ready to blast out. That's Spider-Man more than likely. Maybe with this white gel pen I can put a little highlight on some of the buckle portions here. Maybe put a few sparks around the eyes and mouth because we got all the explosive energy kind of sparking and sparkling through the pumpkin bomb. Kind of get that through the orange there. Orange there. That was a weird sentence. And so I'll bring that up to show y'all so you can see. Just kind of getting the sparkles going there. And gang, I think that's, you know what? If you look right here, this is so you can troubleshoot. You see that one tooth right there? Some of the green has bled down into there. I don't want that. So, you know how I said I'm not a big fan of using the colorless blender to blend? That still holds true. But what you can do is if you get some color blend area that you don't want, hopefully this will work, you can very carefully blend it out. So I'm just going over that tooth and I'm lessening that gray, or that green, I should say. So I'm just pulling up back towards that green to try to get that green out. And I pretty much did it. It's not as vibrant as it was before because I did not want that. So now it has, the colorless blender has gone up in there and infected that area, but that's okay. Because I can come back in. We're going to use my G02. We're just going to smooth that all back out. And we're going to come in with that, where's that YG? That YG25. I'm going to smooth that out as well. In fact, I want to put a little bit more back in the forehead there. So I was able to kind of clean up that one little area there without a lot of problems. So, so if you have just a little bit of a smudge that you don't want, that's a way to kind of quote unquote, using the finger quotes, quote unquote, erase out the Copic marker. It's good for small spots, but not good for like big areas. Not from my experience. Not to say it can't be done. I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. And, oh, I love having fun putting details in. I'm going to come in with some warm gray 3. I'm just putting in a few flecks of debris here. Just a subtle little thing to kind of give the viewer eye a little more to play with. It's just kind of some eye candy. I don't want to go too crazy with it. But just a chance to create a little more, like what just happened here. I'm telling a story. So the goblin is obviously on the rampage here. What did he just do to create all this smoke? What did he just blow up? He probably busted through a bank or some sort of lab, or maybe Peter Parker's apartment. So just kind of gives us a few little flecks, just a few little things for the eye to play with there. So let me grab my, my Pigma Micron, and we will finish this one off now that this illustration is complete. So down by my signature, we can put the date that we completed this on, which is the 15th of March, 2020. And this piece is done. It's done, gang. We did it. We did it. Let me flip the camera around and we can sign off here. Easy for me to say. Oh, this clamp is tight. Let me adjust the rig here. Hey, gang. Let me put this back inside the rig. Ah, there we go. Sorry for that. That's just the way it goes. So, gang, here we go. The completed Green Goblin sketch cover. This was so much fun to do. Had so much fun putting the colors in. I think the colors really kind of brought the whole thing together, and I really had fun doing this. I'm so glad you could join me. I will have this posted on my social media, so make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and if you're on Facebook, there's the Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. You can find me at Todd Nauck on Instagram and Twitter, where I post a lot of my art, especially on Instagram. So feel free to swing by there if you want to see how the finished piece looks. You can come by and be sure to leave a comment and a like there on the social media and here on YouTube. If you like what you saw, leave me a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment, please do. I do my best to read all of those. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, give my channel a subscribe so you don't miss out on future art videos and live streams. I want to say thank you so much for hanging out. Hope everyone's staying safe and well, and I hope you're having a good time drawing. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. Appreciate all the support, and hopefully I'll see you again real soon. Don't forget to read Gwen Stacy, issues 1 and 2 on sale now. Issues 3, 4, and 5 come out the second week of each month, April, May, and June. Yeah. Hope you have fun. And if you like the way I draw the Green Goblin, make sure you're reading Gwen Stacy. Gang, thanks so much. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.